With great excitement, I introduce you to Northwood University, a truly exceptional institution in American higher education. Since 1959, this private, accredited university has been a vibrant bastion of free thought and enterprise, standing out among the thousands of other schools in the U.S. Known as America's Free Enterprise University, Northwood is dedicated to nurturing the next generation of leaders who drive global social and economic progress. At the heart of Northwood lies the Northwood idea, a philosophy that celebrates individual freedom, responsibility, and the importance of moral law and free enterprise. This entrepreneurial spirit is evident in that 1/3 of Northwood alumni own businesses. Northwood is more than an institution. It's a movement that empowers students to think critically and champion liberty. It is a rare gem in today's academic world. If you're passionate about supporting a university that values intellectual growth and free enterprise, or to learn more about its academic programs, visit northwood.edu.
Hi, everybody. On the heels of having recently Rob Schneider, another comedic genius, today we have another superstar of comedy, Patricia Heaton. How you doing?
I'm good. God, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm delighted to have you. I won't mention your whole filmography and so on, but I'll just say that you are a Emmy award-winning actress. Of course, most famously, Everybody Loves Raymond. The Middle would probably be your two most famous
Yeah.
jobs, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Anything? Oh, I want to mention your book from 2002. Maybe a lot of people have forgotten about that. Motherhood and Hollywood: How to Get a Job Like Mine. Anything else you want to add before we get going?
No, I think that's it.
Okay,
No,
so
we have one movie. My husband and I produced a movie. It's on Amazon Prime, a adult comedy called Unexpected with Anna Camp and Joe Mazzello. Unexpected.
this is
It's currently on Amazon Prime. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So maybe we could start there. Has your career, or that of most, actors, radically changed as a function of having all these new platforms where you can practice your art, all the streaming services and so on?
I don't know that it's radically changed. It's made me have to, you have to learn how to behave, I would say. There's there's actors, right? And we go get jobs and we're supposed to disappear into these characters more or less. And you have 150 people working on this project. And so if you come out and you're very political, but only if you're a conservative, you could lose your job. You can get your show canceled. That's a lot of people that were depending on you, right? So you have to, when all these things came up and it's like, oh, good, we all get to talk and make jokes and say stuff and say our opinions. And then you learn, not so much. But mostly if you're a conservative. So that's the thing I think that I've had to learn to navigate, because there's a whole industry of people, and they run the gamut from someone like you who is a professor. You have this other life, and that what you're teaching, you're bringing into what you're talking about. So there's all you kind of experts like Eric Weinstein and Heather Herring. And
the wife
all those,
of Brett Weinstein.
Yes, yeah, and then there's like just pundits who are like, let's say, Megan and Ben and all those folks, and that's their job, is to be provocative, to get out there. So that's how they make their living. And I think sometimes the mistakes, and I had to learn this a little bit, the mistakes you can make as an actor is you go on these shows and they're kind of fun and they get you to say all this stuff. And then they use that for like clickbait. And then they get all these viewers and you can't get a job. So, you have to kind of figure that out. And it was like the wild, wild west when all this first started. And I think just, what do you want to contribute to the culture? What do you want to contribute to society? Do you want to be a divider? Do you want to be a unifier? How do you unify and still be able to express your opinions about things? Should you always be expressing your opinions about things? Is there a time when it's like you don't need to add to the dialogue? So there's a lot to learn as far as being an actor in this space. I could just dump acting and make a whole living on being just you know, a talk show person about like the View type of thing, right? I could do that, but it doesn't really. It's not where my heart is.
There
So
is an opening apparently in The View because they're looking for more conservative voices. Is Miss Heaton putting her hat in that ring?
I have not put my hat in that ring. I used to like going on that show quite a bit. It was way back in the day when Barbara Walters was still there. And
Right.
they had some really fun co-hosts like Sherry Shepard or Jenny McCarthy. And it was this mix of serious and silly. And it was fun. And now it just is so divisive and it's so one-sided that I've just, stopped. I stopped going on it a very long time ago because it wasn't fun.
So I'll come in a second to sort of your political. I mean, I think you were
Yeah.
Republican, now you're independent. But just to kind of stick with the acting ecosystem, I mean, I just mentioned in the
Mhm.
introduction that Rob Schneider was on the show. And of course, it's because he shares some of the positions that I might also ascribe to. Not that I wouldn't
Mhm.
want to have someone who doesn't ascribe to my views, but unfortunately, they don't
Right.
want to talk to me. But in any case, so we've got James Woods, we've got, John Voight, we've got Clint Eastwood, yourself, Rob Schneider. Who are some other names that have the testicular fortitude to actually come out against the groupthink of Hollywood? Can you think of any other ones?
Well, I think what the most recent and interesting voice that isn't completely categorizable is Justine Bateman.
Yes, I actually, sorry, before you go on,
Yes.
I did. I mean, I knew her from her days, when I was a kid, Family
Yes.
Ties and so on. And then she disappeared and I saw her, her resurgence somewhere. And so I don't have direct access to her. So I just retweeted or sort of tagged her and said, hey, if you want to come on the Sad Truth, let me know. Maybe you could help make it happen.
Well, I would just say about her that she's been a real voice for the Screen Actors Guild about AI, during the strike. That was kind of her area of concern. And she did a lot of research into it and tweeted a lot about it. And her other area was in, not having plastic surgery and Botox and fillers. And she talked a lot about that and just letting herself age naturally, which, for me as an extremely vain person, I find very courageous and admirable, but then she, the day after the election, she posted a picture of herself in front of the Washington Monument, I think, with an American flag and said, I love this country, or America's great, or something. And I was like, Justine, what are you saying here, girl? What are you saying? And we worked together on a pilot that didn't go anywhere. And she's really a wonderful person, but I haven't talked to her since then. And that was years and years and years ago. And I thought, this is interesting. And then she started doing these sort of tongue-in-cheek commentaries on all the crazy videos that women were posting, weeping and renting their garments, over the election results. And she started doing these kind of funny directorial critiques of their videos. I'm like, she is just taking the mickey out of these people. And then she finally started talking about it. And she said she felt a sense of relief with the results of the election because she's been walking on eggshells for 4 years.
Yes.
And I think that so many people, including myself, felt that way, felt of just like I was prepping myself for another 4 years of, Harris and Walz and of that administration continuing on. And just sort of steeling myself for that kind of atmosphere that we've been living in, which is oppressive and you can't say anything and you're labeled racist, bigot, transphobe, whatever that is, whatever they're saying, if you want to discuss things, right? And so I think she's been the most interesting new voice that I've seen that's been unexpected. And it's refreshing. And I think more and more people are feeling that relief. I know I felt it too.
Well, listen, I'm Canadian, and yet, of course,
Yes.
The election or the win of Donald Trump, I would exactly use the same R word as you, the sense of existential relief that I felt. Now, in my case, if there is one ecosystem that is more woke than Hollywood, it would be academia, right? Because all of the parasitic ideas, as I explain in one of my books, they all originate
Yes.
from academia. So imagine being me, and I've never modulated my speech. I never give a damn. I mean, from the start, from way before it was cool to actually be a free thinker, I was standing on top of the mountain and saying, look, we've got a problem. So for me, that Trump won, I mean, it's as if I lost 200 pounds of actual physical weight. And I suspect you
Yes.
felt the same way.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I happened to be in Israel when the election results came out. And that was my first visit just 2 weeks ago. It was the first time I'd
Yes.
been.
Did you enjoy
And I
it?
was, just amazing. I think I said to my husband, I think we need to buy burial plots there if they'll let us, because it's so wonderful. Our boys are never going to visit our graves no matter where we go. So we might as well go to Israel.
Why
So
is
we
that?
have because we'll have a front row seat to the resurrection.
Ah, I see. Okay. I see. I see. Okay. So I missed that religious element. Okay.
um, Man, it's just beautiful, and it felt great. I mean, the downside, of the war is that there's no tourists there. But for someone like me to go for the first time with no tourists there was fantastic. You just felt like you're just in your city. It was yours to explore. So that was fantastic. But anyway, I was there when the results were coming. I didn't even want to look at my phone. Like thought I'm having such a good time in Israel. I don't even want to look, because I had seen that women's march that was just right before the election, and they were banging these drums and screaming, and I just thought, wow, there's a lot of them. I think we're going to, and when I say we're going to lose, I've never been a Trump supporter. Um, so I didn't vote in the last two elections. But I went from growing up a Democrat, like Kennedy Catholic, boycotted grapes to support migrant farm workers, did like civil rights activities, and then got to the 80s, and the Democrats just made abortion part of their platform. So I'm a Catholic before I'm a Democrat, and my sister's a nun. And my
Wow.
grandmother was Catholic Mother of the Year for the United States and got a medal from the Pope because she had 15 kids. My mom was one of 15, and I have like 100 first cousins on my mom's side. And my mom went to mass every day, and you know, so that takes precedence over political party. So then I moved to being a Republican, and then when things really started getting crazy, and Trump came in, and I was like, what's going on? And I thought, I'll just be an independent. So that's kind of where I've landed, but I'm still more conservative at heart, right? So yeah. And then when I saw the results, I was just so taken aback. But as I said, we all felt relieved.
Have you, I mean, you said, and I think I'd done a bit of homework prior to us chatting,
Hmm.
and I noticed that you weren't a Trump supporter, and you just stated so right now. Have you come around? So, because you mentioned earlier Megyn Kelly, I think when you
Yeah.
said Megyn, you were referring to Megyn
Yeah.
Kelly, right? So,
Yeah.
as you know, Megyn was not a huge Trump fan, and now she's, one of his biggest fans. Are you in the Megyn camp, or you're just tepidly, into the Trump wagon?
I think he has better people around him this time. I think he seems to have learned a lot. But my main change is I support Israel. That's really, I find, one of the most important things that America needs to do. And I don't feel that the Biden administration was doing it as fully as they should have been. And they were putting restrictions on Israel, and they were leaking stuff so that it got to the point where Israel just was not even telling the administration what they were going to do because they couldn't trust them. And so that to me was where my loyalties lie. So I voted in line with to the protection of Israel.
Is your support of Israel, is it largely rooted sort of in Christian Zionism or religious based Zionism, or independently of your religion, you would have been as much gung ho into your support of Israel?
You know, my dad served in World War II. We knew Nazis were bad, and we knew they tried to exterminate the Jews, and we learned all about the Holocaust, and we all read all about Anne Frank. This was just common knowledge. And I always thought, like, as a Catholic Christian, like, and I posted this the day after October 7th on my Instagram. Do you ever have the thought, gee, if I were a German during World War II, would I have been the good German that hid my Jewish neighbors? Would I have been that person? Because you don't know, right? And I said, today's the day we get to be good Germans and we need to come alongside our Jewish neighbors. Today's the day. Because then they could say, you could have used the excuse, I didn't really know. But today we saw it. They posted that Hamas body cam footage online and they were joyful and gleeful and proud of what they were doing. So I was so aghast at what I was seeing. And I currently, my primary residence is Nashville, and there's like 3 churches on every corner, lots of evangelicals. And I sort of expected, I don't know what I expected them all to raise the Israel flag or to have hostage posters on their lawns. And there was nothing. And I thought, why do I feel this intense need to do something about this and to sort of like Paul Revere, like riding through town, ringing the bell, saying, they're coming, this is happening. And so I got together with a friend of mine who's Christian and her husband's Jewish, and we decided we needed to help Christians find ways to visibly and vocally support the Jewish people and Israel's right to exist and to fight anti-Semitism. So we created the October 7th Coalition, or O7C. And so that's what we do. And I think for the last year or two, the business has been slow for me. And I'm a doer and I need something to do. And so I was just praying, just like, Lord, give me something to do. Like, it doesn't have to be acting, but I want to be of service. And my heart was just like grabbed when October 7th happened in such a way that we put this organization together. I have never, ever thought that I would be putting together a nonprofit or working with the Jewish people. It never came across my mind. The outpouring that we received, we're just 2 women saying, Hanani, here I am, right? And the outpouring of people weeping, like waitresses in restaurants, seeing, me wear the star and just saying, you don't understand what it means to see outsiders stand up for us. I've been to so many places all over the country, speaking at synagogues and Jewish Federation events and Israeli consulate events, and it means a lot for people to for non-Jews to stand up for the Jewish people, and I believe that it's our duty as Christians, because our biological Jewish savior, his family is being attacked. His biological family is being attacked. And so, to just honor him and his mother and his father and the Jewish people, we need to be standing beside them.
Well, amen to that. Yeah, I'm assuming you know that I'm Jewish.
Yes, and you're an atheist, right?
I mean, I'm atheist. It's a complicated story because, look, I'm about as Jewish as one can be.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that I subscribe to all of the rituals in my faith, and that if I don't do them, so for example, I don't. So
that's not really atheism. You're not just a practicer. You believe in God,
or maybe put it as agnostic. So I don't know what there's out there. Maybe there, but in other words. But being Jewish, as you know, is a multifaceted construct.
Yes.
Right? We are a shared heritage people. We are a distinct people. We are a historical people. And so I can be profoundly Jewish without necessarily being as observant as a Hasidic Jew. Does it make him more Jewish than me? Probably not, because I was almost executed for being Jewish. He wasn't.
Right.
So who really carries the upper Judaism card?
The upper hand.
So it's a complicated story, but I'm certainly not, from your earlier point, I'm probably not as religious inclined as you are, let's say, right? So some of those narratives I may not believe, but there are very earthly reasons why I believe in Judaism, right? There are a lot of philosophical teachings and moral teachings that are beautiful, that have stood the test of time. We're almost 6,000 year history. So does that answer your question? Or
yes.
But okay, so I wanted to. Did you talked about all the beautiful feedback and responses you get, but once you go Jew, even if you're only an honorary Jew, you set yourself up for a lot of hate. Were you the recipient of a lot of that, or has it pretty much.
I mean, that's sort of part of life on Twitter,
Yeah.
on X. And, you know, the first time somebody called me, I can't really say it. I can't say it, but I was kind of thrilled. I thought, oh, I'm hitting a nerve. And then I blocked them. I mean, my timeline is a thing of beauty because you just block people. I don't understand people say it's such a cesspool. I can't be on here. You don't keep your DMs open and you block people. That's how you do it. And then you can have a lot of fun and you meet wonderful people and it's hilarious. I mean, it can be so much fun. So, and this is the thing, like I'm Irish Catholic and there's just a sort of a DNA of looking for a fight. Like I've had to kind of
You're
work
a
on
brawler.
that a little bit of a brawler. Yeah. When I was over there, you could hear the Iron Dome taking rockets out of the sky. You would just hear this like boom, boom. And then you'd see these puffs of smoke in the air, like near Capernaum where Jesus gave his Sermon on the Mount. And so, I was not at all bothered by that. It didn't frighten me. In fact, I was like, where's that coming from? Where can we go see? So I think, God gives everybody their personality and it can be used for good and, it can be used for not so good things. So I try to channel that sort of fighting spirit into something that is constructive.
I mean, our worlds would have never collided were it not for the magic of social media, right?
100%. Yes.
And I can tell you stories of people that I've had the privilege and pleasure of meeting that, again, I would have never met. Can you share with us, the top few that come to mind? It doesn't have to be professors. It could be anything, but someone that you would have never crossed paths were it not for the magic of X. And in that sense, we are further promoting the incredible power of Elon Musk. Thank God.
Well, I think Elon Musk. This sounds crazy, but I feel like he saved America. Like free speech is everything.
It is.
Free speech is everything. Even terrible, awful speech. You still have to be able to be free. And what the Democrats wanted to do, and what they had been doing before Elon took over, was so amazing. They said, why don't you, he said, I'll buy X. And then he realized, I'm paying way too much. I'm going to back out. And then all these, liberals said, you have to buy it. You have to buy it now. You said you're going to do it. You have to do it. And so he did. And he saved the world,
right,
more or less. So I mean, we just really owe him. I'm just trying to think, I mean, just generally speaking, I would say like Brett Weinstein, who I listen to his podcast all the time and occasionally DM him. And now is he the same field of study as you?
So thank you. That's a great question. So he is an evolutionary biologist through.
Yes.
I mean, he wasn't a terribly active researcher in all frankness, but that's his training. I apply evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology to study human behavior, right? And so, for example, so you might say, well, what does that mean? So right. Let's suppose I want to study how hormones affect our economic choices, right? So I've done studies where I've looked at how women beautify themselves as a function of where they are in their menstrual cycles. The idea being that in the maximally fertile phase of a woman's cycle, you're more likely to engage in sexual signaling, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're in the luteal phase, you're less likely to have mating concerns, right? Well, you find this behavior not just in human females, but you find it across many other mammalian species. And so I'm taking an evolutionary biological principle that applies to other species, and then I'm demonstrating its effect in the human context. Whereas in the case of Brett, he's not necessarily a behavioral scientist or a psychologist, but he is certainly an evolutionary biologist. Does that answer it for you?
Yes. Yeah. So that's so far out of my field. Same with Jordan Peterson, where we went to see him early on when he and Dave Rubin did their first tour together.
Oh, right.
And it was just so shocking. And it was in Los Angeles, and it was almost all young men.
Yes.
And yes, and that was really kind of cool and exciting. So I think those are the kind of people that I come across that have really been enriched my life. And also being in the Jewish space has really enriched my life because you understand why God chose the Jews, because they're really smart and really stubborn, and that's what you need to survive for 6,000 years, right?
True.
When the whole world is attacking you. But I remember seeing some videos saying, well, the Jews, they think they're superior to everyone, and I'm like, they are. Have you seen the Nobel Prize list?
I actually posted, I put up a figure from the Nobel Foundation showing the number of Nobel Prizes won by Jews as a function of their per capita, how many Jews
Yes,
there are,
like
versus
22%, right?
yeah, so it's almost a quarter, 20 something percent,
Yes.
versus in Islam, which constitutes 1/4 of humanity, and they have like 4 Nobel Prizes. And people accuse me of Islamophobia. So simply sharing an
Yeah.
actual fact is
Yes.
construed as Islamophobic.
Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever watched the show The Amazing Race, but there was an inordinate amount of Mormons who won that show
Is that
year
right?
in and year out. Yes, because the Mormons have this particular work ethic and family ethic and whatever, and they were winning The Amazing Race all the time. So, and I don't think, and actually, a friend I met recently had shared that he's still friends with all his childhood friends he grew up with in Boston, and they sort of noticed recently there's 9 of them, and that they all became very successful in their chosen fields. And goes, we were trying to figure out why that is, and I said, "Are you all Jewish?" And he said, "Yeah." Well,
Well, you want to hear a story?
What's the mystery?
I got a good story for you. So, first semester as a doctoral student, I was a doctoral student at Cornell.
Yeah.
And at a time when Cornell used to have a heavy Jewish influence, now you're in danger if you go to Cornell wearing a Star of David, as I think you were going to visit Cornell, weren't you?
Yeah, we were going to. I wasn't able to do it because of the Israel trip.
Too bad. Yeah, I actually returned to my alma mater this past April. I gave 2 talks, one on the parasitic mind and one on global Jew hatred. But in any case, my first semester at Cornell, I was taking a doctoral course with a Jewish professor named Richard Thaler, who ended up winning the Nobel Prize in Economics. And as we were sitting there discussing possible projects that we might collaborate on, I'm a young doctoral student, I'm maybe 25. He says to me, you're Jewish, right? I said, yes. He goes, oh, I'm sure you're going to be successful. I said, why do you say that? So then he went through the list of like the top 10 psychologists that study economics or decision making, and every single one of them everyone was Jewish.
Yes. Well, Dennis Prager has this funny line that he says, because he said, the way the universities are now, he said, Jewish people need to stop giving their money to these universities that hate them. And he said, but this is the thing with Jews. He said, when you ask a Jew, how are you doing? The answer will be, my daughter's at Dartmouth. He said, we've put so much emphasis on their education, which is, part of the reason that everybody does so well, and I was just on this tour of Israel with these 3 young Jewish men, and one's 7th generation rabbi, and he speaks 5 languages, and they're just the most wildly educated and fun and funny and great people. So I had one person came up to me and introduced himself, and I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from here. And then he named all the schools he went to and all the degrees that he had. And I said, well, I was a blackout drunk for 4 years at Ohio State, and yet here we both are. Well, at the end of the day, we all have our gifts, that we've, hopefully used for the flourishing of humankind. And but the Jews are very good at that.
Well, I'll mention one more story about the importance of education within the Jewish ecosystem, and then I'd like to talk about humor in general, something that you're obviously very adept at. So I tell the story in The Parasitic Mind. So I hope anybody who's heard it before is not going to be upset to hear it again, but it's a well worth story to retell. So I did an undergrad in mathematics and computer science. I'm only saying this not to talk about my CV, but it's relevant to the story.
Did I mention I was a blackout drunk at Ohio State?
You did.
Okay.
Undergrad in mathematics and computer science. Then I did an MBA with a mini thesis in operations research, which is an applied mathematics field. And then I went on straight. I wanted to go on to pursue my MS, my Master's of Science and PhD at Cornell. But as I was visiting different schools that had accepted me for my PhD, one of them was University of California, Irvine, where my brother lived in Newport Beach, and he was a very successful entrepreneur. And so he was trying to convince me to maybe take a break after my MBA, work with him for a few years, put on the proverbial suit, get some industry experience before I went on, to pursue my doctorate. Which I really wasn't interested in doing, but he's my older brother. So I was, entertaining him and trying to pitch that idea to me. Well, when my mother catches wind of that attempt by my brother to influence me into putting the pause on the PhD, when I returned to Montreal, the first day that I go to their house to see them, she says, "Come, I want to talk to you," in a very, very sort of ominous. So we go to another room. I say, "Well, what's up, Mom?" She goes, "I'm hearing that you're thinking of maybe leaving school for a while." I said, "No, not really." She goes, "Well, if you are, do you want people to remember you as somebody who dropped out of school?" So I already had an MBA, but from her perspective, I would bring terrible shame to the family as an illiterate dropout because I wouldn't have a PhD. So that gives you the sense of expectations that come with being.
But do you feel like did you feel like pressure and anxiety from that?
Not at all, because I wanted. So from a very young age, there was only two things I was interested in ever being. One was a professor. Two was to be a professional soccer player. Very different things, brainy and brawny. And so I always knew that I was going to go on to do a PhD, but it gives you a sense of your general ecosystem is we expect huge things from you, right? Don't be.
And is that because you are always being attacked in the world as a people, and so you have to show, be your best self.
That's a
your
great
highest
question.
Self.
There are several theories as to why learning is so important in the Jewish context. One of which is that in cases where you can't own land or you can't do the capital that I can always transport anywhere is my mind, my brain, my knowledge. In French, you say carte de visite, your visiting card, your business card. Well, once I have all that education, you could steal my land, you could take my home. I mean, right? We lost everything in Lebanon, but yet we can go elsewhere. And because we've got minds, because we're good business people, because we're highly educated, we could restart without wallowing in endless victimhood, right? Few people have as strong a story of victimhood as what I went through and what my family went through in Lebanon. Yet, we came to Canada, we went like this, and we said, okay, you know how we're going to defeat those guys? We're going to be super successful. And that's what we did.
Right. And do you think that Israelis are different from like American Jews or Jewish people that live in America? Is it the same with Israelis?
That's a great question. I mean, it
because there's a difference. I've been really noticing.
Makes sense. So, for example, we are Mizrahi Jews, meaning Jews from Arab lands, right?
Right.
So I may have a lot more in common, Patricia, with a Lebanese Christian girl in terms of our culture than I would with an Ashkenazi Polish Jewish woman. So yes, we share a Jewish heritage, but she's Polish, I'm Arabic, right? And so there are differences, and in Israel you do see it. So for example, the Mizrahi Jews are called the Jews of color, right? Or the black Jews. Even though we may not be black, we're the desert Jews, right? The Iraqis, the Egyptians, the Lebanese, the Yemenites, right? Those are, and so there is a bit of tension historically between the Mizrahi Jews, the Sephardic Jews, and the Ashkenazi Jews.
Yeah.
On a cultural level, I would say.
Right.
So in that, I think that would be the main distinction. But what did you see any different dynamics depending on where you went in Israel?
Oh yeah, it was so interesting because obviously you have the ultra Orthodox everywhere with all the kids, and that's very special. And then there's Orthodox, but it's like they were Orthodox from the 1970s, so they look like hippies. Like the women's hair is wrapped in these huge scarves that go up like a big turban, and they're kind of in flowing things, and you could drop them in Topanga Canyon in LA and they would fit in perfectly.
Right.
It's like the Jewish version of Jesus freaks from that time, right?
Right.
There and the kibbutzim kind of have that vibe of like
Yes.
kind of community, communal nature, peace and love, and which is very interesting that they were the ones that were attacked. Shameful. So and just the intensity that you feel there because of what's happened, and over there, like it's not 6 degrees of separation. There's almost no separation for them and what happened and the people that they know who died or who are hostages. So there's that kind of intensity, but then there's also just, the ability of Jewish people to just live in the midst of like war and terror, and to fully live and to fully enjoy and to seem joyful, but thoughtful. It's not like they're trying to pretend like nothing's going on. They're very aware of what's going on. And so that's why they're living life to the fullest. I mean, it's this really interesting thing. And there isn't a sense of victimhood at all. It's an incredible identity that I would imagine must have some weight to it, that you carry that identity, whether for good or for bad, that there's a weight to having that identity. You feel that yourself because you escaped from Lebanon.
Yeah. I mean, I would say on a less ominous note, another thing that I love about Israel is the beauty, I mean, the physical beauty of and people don't appreciate that. I mean, I think the main analogy that I would compare to Israel historically would be Brazil. Because in Brazil, what you're having, in French, you say métissage, the mixing of races. So whenever you have a mixture of races, the outcome of that oftentimes is a phenotype, is a physical manifestation that's even kind of more beautiful, right? Because
yes,
it's uniquely exotic. So in Israel, what you now have are, as I mentioned earlier, you've got the Jews that sort of look like me, Middle Eastern Jesus-looking Jews. You've got the Ashkenazi Jews that are much more fair-skinned. You've got the Falasha Jews, the Ethiopian Jews, and the Yemeni Jews that are much. And now you cross all those together, and you get this kind of. I think the men too are gorgeous, but I certainly know the women are ridiculous. I mean, you're like.
I know. I was like, somebody like me, this little 5'2" Irish, pasty Irish person, feeling like a toad over there. But no, it's great though. I mean, it is really wonderful and such a mix. And all in Jerusalem, you have to build everything with that Jerusalem stone. So it's just that beautiful glowing kind of thing.
True.
And the history. What's really cool about that, especially as a Catholic. Instead of it like, this happened way back then, and these ancient ruins, and everywhere you go, they're digging up, and they keep finding more things that correlate directly with the stories in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And so history gets more compressed. It doesn't feel so far away. It's more. It becomes like this river, and we all get to be part of this flow of history, this river that's just continuous, and it's all heading somewhere. And we don't know how it's going to end or where it's going to end. Well, I mean, Christians have an idea of what's going to happen.
Yes.
But they think, right. And it's actually Christians and Jews have more or less the same idea, although that's very interesting to me, the different views about the afterlife that different Jewish people have.
True.
Because some don't believe at all.
Yes.
Some are waiting for a Messiah. It's very interesting to me.
Actually, very close to where I live,
are
some ultra-Orthodox Jews who believe that Rabbi Schneerson is the first coming of the Messiah. And so they will put, the Messiah is coming, and they put a picture of Rabbi Schneerson. Other Jews.
But there's been a couple of those, right?
There have been a couple of those throughout history. Yes,
absolutely. From different communities.
Exactly.
Like in Brooklyn
Yes, exactly. I'm going to come back to humor as I promised, but since we're on the religious stream, did you see, and you're Catholic, did you see the recent release of Conclave?
I haven't. I know that Bishop Barron, I don't know if you know Bishop Robert Barron.
No.
He's quite a spokesperson for Catholics and a media person for Catholics in the U.S., and he's thought it was terrible.
I agree with him.
Oh, you agree with him? Yeah, because everyone was a scheming, political,
Not
like
even that,
backstabbing
Patricia.
thing.
I'll tell you what it was for me. I actually released an episode, kind of a film critic. What were the name of those two film critics in the 80s?
Oh,
Ebert, right, sorry. I put on that
Roger
hat.
Ebert, and yeah.
Right, yes, exactly. One sort of heavier guy.
Siskel and Ebert.
Siskel and Ebert. That was exactly. So I went to see it because. So you're gonna like the story.
Well, I love Ray Fiennes, so like I would go just to see him because he's so good.
I agree. I actually like Stanley Tucci too. He's.
Oh yeah, Stanley's great. Yeah.
Right, but so I've always been fascinated by the mystery and regalia and pomp of some of these religious rituals, right?
Yes.
So I had a fantasy straight out of my PhD. So my PhD was in psychology of decision making. And I had always been interested in studying the decision-making processes in the conclave, but of course I knew that could never happen because it's not as though
it's secret.
The Vatican's going to say, "Oh yes, let the Lebanese Jew come in, who's an evolutionist, and let him study us like the lab rats that we are." But it had always been a fantasy for me to actually all the machinations that must be happening, the group dynamics, the decision making, and so on. And so I went to the movie really super excited, if only for that. And then the movie was gorgeous. And the last 20 minutes. Can I ruin it for you? And
you can ruin it for me.
Okay. Yeah. And anybody who wants to see it, spoiler alert, look away if you don't want to see it. It turns into the biggest orgy of wokeism that you could imagine. So I'll tell you two quick, stories the last 20 minutes. So there's a bomb that goes off, and it's Islamic terror. And some of the hardline cardinals are sort of rallying up the Catholic faith that, Islam is coming after us and they're antithetical to us and so on. And then this one cardinal stands up and does this beautiful monologue of how beautiful Islam is. And so
are you kidding me?
So now I turn around to my wife. She looks at me and I go, "Oh, Houston, I think we have a problem. But hold on. I'm nowhere near finished."
You have got to be. I'm so glad you told me. It's not that I won't go, but I would have jumped out of my seat in the theater.
I'm going to get you more upset. You ready? So now, as a result of this very powerful and moving Islamophilic speech, right? Love of Islam, inside the conclave by the cardinals of Catholicism, right? So everybody is so moved that they decide to vote for this person who was completely an outsider, who came out of nowhere. He had been a cardinal in Kabul. There isn't exactly much of a Catholic community of, in Afghanistan. And then they vote him in. And as they're about to announce it to the world, the white smoke comes out. We have a new pope, a new vicar of Christ. Yes, it turns out that pope is, drum roll, you ready?
Yes.
It's a woman. So it's not quite transgender. It's intersex. The chosen pope had gone secretively to Switzerland to have an operation to have her uterus removed, but she always presented to the world as male. I said, and this is before Donald Trump won, right? And so I thought to myself, there isn't a single nook or cranny of society that these assholes have not found a way to get into. We can't even be safe within the confines of the conclave from them. And so I got really pissed. So that night I went and I did that film review, which you should go watch. Although I have
to go watch.
So because what do you think of that?
You're not even Catholic and you're enraged. That's hilarious. It's almost, I'm so shocked. I thought you were just going to say, I don't know what I think. That is insane. And I am shocked that somebody like Ray Fiennes would do that role. I mean, it's ridiculous. Who wrote it? Was it a Catholic that wrote it?
I don't know. I don't know the
okay, now I'm going to have to look into it. That is the most ludicrous thing I have ever heard in my life. It's ludicrous.
I saved you an increase of blood pressure and about $15-20 per ticket. So you're welcome.
Oh my gosh, that's these people, I have a book next to my bed. It's called the New Book of Christian Martyrs. And the original was called Fox's Book of Christian Martyrs. So there had some British guy years ago had compiled, the stories of Christian martyrs. So now this is the updated version. And you go and you can read a story a night. Just it's a page about this, and when you see what people went through for their faith.
Yeah.
There is a French Jesuit named Isaac Jogues, spelled Jogues, and he and a bunch of black robes went to upstate New York to preach the gospel to the Iroquois. And they cut off his tongue so he couldn't preach the gospel, and they cut off his right hand so he couldn't write anything. And he went, and they killed some of the other ones. He went back to France, got healed, and went back again to continue. And then they tomahawked him and he died. And, so to have somebody, some interloper come and take a look at the church, and this is what they do with it, right? It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And by the way, if you did that with anybody else's religion, they would be burning down the movie theaters.
Well, not anybody else's, certainly Islam. They wouldn't do it if Mormons, right? There is a play called the Book of Mormons.
The Book of Mormon. You know what the Mormons did? They stood outside the theater and handed out the Book of Mormon to people.
Exactly.
So that is okay. Now I'm really intrigued. I'm going to have to look this up. I mean, let me just say, I think, the church in ancient times and through medieval times and onward was such a patron of the arts, and you see the beauty in all the churches and the writings and I think at some point we gave that up, and so you have people coming into the void creating crap like that.
Yes.
And the stuff that on the conservative side that people have tried to make, a lot of it is not good. And so you have these really gifted, talented people who have a very different viewpoint, and I would say in that case, a really distorted viewpoint. And so, and they have the skill and the financing to bring that out. Now there is now a sort of a movement of what they're calling values-based content that a lot of studios are looking for, because a lot of the stuff they're churning out is not connecting with people. And I think the election showed that people are sick of all that stuff. And so, but it's a hard time right now financially. And these studios, they kind of come to faith-based people or conservative people or Christian people for content, and yet they don't really, it's just kind of a bit of a mess. And people are trying to create stuff. And it's hard right now because we're in a downturn in our industry. But I think part of it is we let it go. We let go of making great movies. My favorite movie, what I think is the greatest of all time, is a movie called On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando and Eva Marie Saint, Marlon Brando, Rod Steiger, and the guy that plays the priest, Carl Malden. Have you seen it?
Oh, Carl Malden, have you seen this movie? Guy with the nose.
Yeah. Have you seen On the Waterfront?
I have not.
Okay, you have to. This is the greatest movie ever made. I'm staking my artistic reputation on it. The greatest writing, the greatest directing, the greatest acting, the greatest music. And it's a story of a guy having to make a moral decision that is going to cost him. And it's so beautiful. And it's not a faith-based movie. It's not a Christian movie, but there's a speech that Carl Malden as the priest has to make. And it's one of the most beautiful speeches in a movie. And he's talking about Christ in this speech. And it was, a Jewish writer and a Jewish director that made the movie. And it's not a faith-based movie. It's just a great movie about the human condition and making hard decisions of your life and, making the right decision, even though it costs you. And we used to make that kind of stuff just used to be out there. And now it wasn't a preachy movie. It's a beautiful movie. And, now we get stuff like this. Yeah. On the Waterfront. You will love it. It's wonderful.
I'm sure I will. So about 15 years ago, before my wife and I had our first child, we embarked on a project where we went and downloaded the list from the AFI, the American
Okay, best
top
100 movies.
the best 100 movies, and
Yeah.
we thought, we if we're going to be seriously cultured film people, we just have to at least see each of them. Well, we didn't get through the whole list because we ended up having children, and then you know how that goes. But I did see it. I mean, to your point about what are the greatest movies, I mean, my all-time favorite movie is 12 Angry Men, the original one.
Oh yeah. Oh
the
yes.
1950s one.
Yeah.
But what was interesting in going through that exercise of trying to go through the AFI, some movies we would watch and we'd say, oh my God, how did we live life not having seen that movie? But then other ones, we would watch it and look at each other and go, that really sucked. So I'll give you an example of both. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So All About Eve, unbelievable. Did you see that?
Yes. It's funny because it's like they just filmed the play.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's done like a play.
It is.
You know,
it is.
They didn't make it into a movie, really, but yeah, it's really
So
great
All About
acting.
Eve. I loved The Apartment with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine.
Shirley MacLaine. Yeah.
Double Indemnity. I loved.
Right.
Now here's one that I didn't like. Roman Holiday.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit of a
Breakfast at Tiffany's. Such an iconic movie. I looked at it, I said, this sucks. What am I not getting? I'm the layman, you're the professional. Is there any value to what I'm saying, or am I missing the whole boat?
Right. I felt that way. This is going to be sacrilegious for an actor to say, but the one that I just had a hard time really getting the greatness of it. And now the one with Rosebud. What's the movie?
Which
with
one?
Rosebud. With Rosebud. It's Orson Welles.
Oh, Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
I've never seen it.
Okay, I have to say his acting was so naturalistic, which was very unusual for the time. So that stood out to me. But I didn't I think you kind of have to understand what movies were like at the time that movie came out and what it was trying to say, because I think it was about Hearst, I think.
Yes,
the publisher Hearst.
Yeah,
right. And so, I mean, I think it was very groundbreaking because of the time it was made in and stuff. So it's harder to see it, I think, from to watch it now and see what the big fuss is about. I mean, I know I sound like just a mongrel for saying that about that movie, but I really remember the first time I saw it and I thought, I don't get it really.
Yeah, I think I haven't seen it, but I feel that my evaluation is going to be close to what you just said. So that's why I always preferred not to see it, so it could kind of remain as a mythical thing that's unattainable. Okay, we're almost running out of time.
We have a little more time.
Oh, we do? Okay.
We do.
You think we could go 10 more minutes?
Yes, for sure.
Good. Okay, so
we have time.
Okay, so switching to humor and comedy. So in evolutionary psychology, you asked me earlier what I do. So there is a theory in evolutionary psychology that humor is a sexually selected trait. And let me explain what I mean by that. Meaning that there is a sex difference in humor ability precisely because men use humor as a peacocking signal to women. That's why you find usually that women who say, oh, I'm really attracted to a funny guy. Now, I explain that as humor is a proxy for intelligence, because it's very unlikely that you could be sarcastic and witty if you're not intelligent, right? Dave Chappelle may not have all the degrees from the Ivy League, but he's probably more intelligent than many of my colleagues who are in the Ivy League, right?
Right.
And so you are a woman, you are a funny person, you've been in do you subscribe to the idea that on average men are funnier than women, or you think no, there is no sex difference?
Will I get canceled for saying
no?
Maybe,
there's no more canceling. We're Trump world now.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking about, well, in our line of work, I mean, you see so many funny women in comedies and multicams and so in my world, I would say it's about equal. It's just, I think men, and I'm not like a big, I am woman, hear me roar kind of person, but men do tend to just get more of the gigs and have longer careers than women, and in comedy and generally speaking, but definitely in comedy. And And I think it wasn't Christopher Hitchens. Didn't he write something about saying
Yeah,
that?
in Vanity
Right.
Fair, in Vanity
And
Fair.
everybody was up in arms, and all these women came out and said,
That's why I'm trying
"We're
to get some
funny, God
controversy.
damn it!" You know, being the least funny. You know, if women responded in a funny way, that would have been great. They just got pissed off,
Yes.
which just sort of, ruined it for them. Um, so yeah, I mean,
Well, let's put it this way. I'm gonna make it easy. If anybody gets into trouble, direct your hate mail to me. Right? Very few men say, "Oh my God, you are so gorgeous. You're so sexy. You have such a beautiful body." But frankly, you're not really witty or intelligent or funny. So no sex for you, Linda. The other way around happens often, right? There's a gorgeous guy who physically fits all the ideals. And then he opens his mouth. He's not intelligent. He's not funny. He's not witty. He's not sarcastic.
right?
He's not worldly. And so many women have said, "No sex for you. You're adult." The other way,
Right.
I've never heard it said ever in the history of humanity.
Yeah. That's kind of the difference between men and women, though. Like men don't really need necessarily an intellectual giant, right? They're not wired that way. Right.
True.
I mean, yeah. And then you always see like Woody Allen always had the most gorgeous women, right?
Picasso,
Yeah,
short little
Picasso,
guy,
yes,
bald,
right, yeah,
and there was
yes,
a long lineup of ladies getting
yes,
have sex with him.
yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, when I just look around at women I've worked with, and they are really, really, really funny, but men seem to get platformed more. So I think we just see more men than women.
Got you. Okay, last question, kind of on a well, not
Yep.
personal level, but what are some projects you're currently working on? Not that you need my platform to promote them, but anything that you're working on that you'd like to share with us. Take it away.
Yeah.
Tell us all about it.
Well, I would like everybody to go watch Unexpected, our movie that we produced. I'm not in it, but we produced it on Amazon Prime. It's just a wonderful, funny comedy, but it has this very moving heart to it about a couple who can't have kids, and the wife wants to adopt and the husband doesn't, and sort of their journey in their marriage through that issue. So that's great. And then I actually did a movie recently called The Ritual about an exorcism that happened in 1928 in Wisconsin, and Al Pacino's playing the exorcist.
Whoa!
So that so that was really fun, and I got to play the Polish Mother Superior of the convent where the exorcism.
You can't throw at me that you met Al Pacino with 1 minute left in our conversation.
No, we can talk for a few more minutes.
Okay, well, listen.
He's so kind and wonderful, and and so talented. And I was thinking, okay, well, when I actually met him a long time ago because I did a script reading with him at our agent's office, but I don't know that he would remember. He knew me from Raymond, but so I just thought, well, I'm just going to be like very deferential and calm when I see him. And then he walked in and he goes, "I know you," and I'm like, "Al, you're like the best actor in the whole world." I was like a fawning sixth grader, a middle school crush. I mean, I just, he's just been great. He's always been great, and he's kind, and he's lovely, and he's generous, and yeah, it was just an honor to work with him. I had a very tiny part, but I thought I need to be in a, especially for a Catholic, I need to be in an exorcism movie with Al Pacino.
So I'm going to tell you a fantastic personal story involving Al Pacino. So I'm 15 years old, I think. On one of the rare times that I've ever gone to the movies with either of my parents, I had gone to see, I think my parents had just returned from Lebanon for the last time they had gone. So my mother and I went to see Cruising, which was, do you know that movie?
You went with your mom?
Watch, hold on. This is going to get wild.
Wait, and you were 15 and you went 15. To see Cruising?
Exactly.
Okay.
Hold on.
You were obviously not reading the Catholic nutpaper that rates the movies, and that movie would have been given a C for Condemned. Okay, go ahead.
So yes, so I've always been fascinated by serial killers and crime things, and so this movie was about. I know you know this, but maybe our viewers don't. So it's about Al Pacino playing a character of an undercover cop who goes into the heavy leather gay world of the late 70s.
S&M gay
S&M,
world.
Wild sex, anonymous sex, to find the serial killer. Now, I didn't know all that part. I just knew that Al Pacino plays a cop. He's going to see. So we're watching the movie, and now I'm getting very, very uncomfortable because there are some really wild scenes. And then as we leave the movie, the same mother who was worried that I might bring shame to the family because I'm going to be a school dropout with only an MBA, she says to me, did you bring me this movie to tell me something? I said, no, Mom, this is not my breakout I'm gay scene. So if you ever speak to Mr. Pacino, tell him that my mother thought I was coming out as a gay boy because I saw that movie.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine sitting with your mom. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So
That's
he was a manifestation of the opposite of the adage, don't meet your heroes. In your case,
yes,
he was that and more.
Wonderful guy. Yeah, wonderful guy. And then I have a small part. There's a movie coming out on Amazon, a nice Christmas romance movie called Merv, about a dog, and it's just a really jolly. It's Charlie Cox and the actress. I didn't have my coffee this morning, so the wonderful actress from Single Girl? Zooey Deschanel. Zooey Deschanel and Charlie Cox. Yeah. Yeah.
The offbeat girl, right?
Yeah, she's beautiful blue eyes. She's wonderful. It's a really charming little movie. And so that's coming out. And there's one coming in February, and I have a very small role in it, though, called Unbreakable Boy, that's coming out too. So there's a couple of little things here and there while I'm trying to find another TV series to do. So
wonderful. Well, listen, what a pleasure it is for our worlds to have collided. Thank you. So much. Stay on the line.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, and you're in Michigan now, right?
Yeah. So I've taken a 1-year leave from my Montreal university, but I
Concordia.
Concordia. Oh, okay. But I'm currently in Montreal, but my official job is in Michigan. Gorgeous university, Northwood University, gorgeous little town. I don't know if you've ever been there, called Midland. It's the unique feature of Midland is that it's the place where Dow Chemicals has its global headquarters. So because of that, over the past 100 years, they've poured billions of dollars into the town. So there's this little town that's incredibly cultured, and sushi bars and Italian restaurants that you would never imagine exist in rural Michigan, but it's actually gorgeous. So I couldn't be happier. But yeah,
great.
Thank you for knowing that.
Stay
on the line so we could say goodbye offline. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.